Trump is slaughtering the Kurds right now for his own personal and family profit. Will America continue to allow this? Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. We got some more information yesterday about Donald Trump, Turkey, and the Kurds that is very, very troubling. I mean, it's bad enough that Trump is trying to hump the presidency, to basically hustle the presidency, his office, in order to make profit for himself and the Trump crime family. You know, it's bad enough that he's continuing to run this hotel in Washington, D.C., when the lease from the Park Service says that if the lessor, or the lessee, I guess it is, the person who is renting that property from the federal government. Keep in mind, the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. is not owned by Donald Trump. That building and the land that it's on are owned by the U.S. National Park Service. The building was the first major post office built in Washington, D.C., built back in the 19th century. And the building was leased to the Trump organization before Donald Trump declared his candidacy for office. And in the lease, it says that if the leaseholder becomes an elected official or an appointed official, then they have to give up the lease, which means that the Trump Hotel DC has to be, like, you know, given to Marriott or something, to some other hotel company who doesn't have a senior officer who is president or any other federal officer. But Trump continues to do that. He, in flagrant violation of the federal emoluments prohibition in the Constitution that the president may not take foreign money. I mean, this appears twice in the Constitution. Once in Article 1, I think it's Section 5, where it defines, Article 2, Section 5, where it defines what the compensation is for the president. And it says that the president shall be paid and shall receive no additional money outside of his paycheck. So there's two emoluments exceptions, but that's domestic. Then there's, of course, the foreign one. And then he goes and says, oh, yeah, G7, come on down to Florida to the Doral. It's a crime just to even suggest that. But last night, NBC, specifically Heidi Presbala and another reporter, Anna, I'm missing her name, but in any case, the two of them wrote this report for NBC News, pointing out that Donald Trump has not only made millions of dollars, initially $10 million, and then, up to $5 million a year. We're not sure exactly how much he's making right now, from having his name on the so-called Trump Towers in Istanbul, Turkey. So he's making millions from this. When he was pushing his Muslim ban, you remember that? Back 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, Trump was pushing his Muslim ban. And on the list of Muslim countries was Turkey. And Erdogan called him up and said, you do that, and I'm going to take your name off Trump Tower, and you're no longer going to get licensing fees. And Trump immediately backed away and took Turkey off the list. So NBC News pointed that out, but they additionally pointed out that Donald Trump owns positions in 219 different investment vehicles based in Turkey. He's got a lot of money in Turkey, and he's making a lot of profit out of Turkey. And then Erdogan calls up and says, hey, we'd like you to slaughter the Kurds. And so Trump's rationale, we'd like you to give us permission, basically, to slaughter the Kurds. And so Trump's rationale yesterday was that the Kurds did not fight in World War II. Well, it turns out they did. It was called the Iraq Levies. They were an allied World War II force. They were made up of Kurds, Assyrians, Armenians, and Yazidis, and some Turkmen. By the way, these are the groups, these 5 ethnic groups, the Assyrians, the Kurds, the Armenians, the Turkmen, and the Yazidis. These are the 5 groups, along with a Christian group in northern Syria, that make up the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is, we're referring to them kind of generically as the Kurds, but it's actually the Syrian Democratic Forces who are being bombed right now by Turkey with U.S. bombs, bombs made in Ohio and Indiana, dropping on northern Syria, on Christian and Kurdish areas. And they did fight. They just served under the British and the French instead of under Eisenhower. So how long are we going to allow Donald Trump? Now he's set up a genocide for profit scheme. Is this not the ultimate impeachable crime? And then, you know, how should the House Democrats deal with Trump's impeachable crimes? I mean, there's actually an op-ed in today's New York Times suggesting that they can go ahead and start arresting people, particularly like Giuliani. I'm really wondering what kind of conversations they're having over there, you know, in Nancy Pelosi's office right now about inherent contempt. The Supreme Court has actually backed this up. I didn't realize that until today when I read this New York Times piece.